Okay, so we're gonna go over a quick introduction to objects in Java. So we're gonna create a class, a circle object that will give us a radius and perimeter of a circle. So what we start off is outside of our uh, class main, we create a new class, and let's call this circle. Okay, to access this class inside of our main, what we do is do circle. So it has to be the name of this class. Then we can call it C1 equals new circle. Okay? And then we can pass in parameters here, or if you don't want to, we don't have to. So let's inside of our class circle, let's do double radius. Okay? And then we'll set up a constructor. So since we're not passing in any parameters, our constructor, which will be the same name as our class, so circle. Okay, so pretty much the constructor's job is to initialize any variables like in this region. So for example, radius. Radius will default be 1 if we don't pass in any parameters in our constructor. And we can set up another constructor where if we do pass in parameters, so we'll do double new radius. Okay, so if we pass in, let's say 15 instead, we would call this constructor. But if you pass in nothing, we would just call in this constructor. Okay. So next thing we're gonna do is um, we're gonna create a few getters and setters. Okay. So let's say we want to change our radius later on. What we would do is set up a setter, which let's call it void set radius. And here we pass in double new radius. Obviously, this you can name it whatever you want. And then we do a radius equals new radius. So this is kind of like a constructor, okay? And then now we're gonna write two return functions that will give us our area of a circle and perimeter of a circle. So we would do double get area, and we will do a return. So the formula for area is pi, so math.pi times the radius squared. So radius times radius. Okay, so this is our setter. Now let's do another setter. Sorry, I mean getter. This is our getter. My bad. So now let's do another getter called get perimeter. Alright, so gets us the perimeter of a circle. So we do return 2 times math.pi times the radius. Okay? And then let's close our class. Alright, so now here we do circle C1 equals new circle. So pretty much what this does is it goes here. It initializes this it calls this constructor. Radius is now equal to 1. Now we can play around with this C1 here. So this C1 pretty much represents this whole constructor and all the values inside it. So if you do system.out.print line, and let's say we want to see what's the radius of C1. What we do is do C1.radius. Okay, and then this would display in 1. Now let's say we want to see what our area is. So we want to see our get area. What we do is do C1 and we call that method. So it'll be get area and then obviously close bracket. And then this, it's going to be, so radius is right now 1. So it'll be pi times 1 squared. So it's just pi, or 3.1459, and a bunch of other decimals. And then we can also call another circle called C2. So circle C2 equals new circle. And this one, let's declare a new radius. So let's call this radius. So let's have this radius to be 2. Okay. So let me just move, get some space quickly. There we go. Oh, hold on. There we go. So for C2, if we do C2 dot get area, recall this, so 3.14159. This will, so since our radius is 2, let's, so our area is going to be 4 pi. So calculate whatever 4 pi is, and that's what's going to display out here. And if you want to change our radius, you would do C2 dot set radius. And inside the parameters, we would set in our new radius. Oh, sorry, it should be uppercase R. There you go. So we're calling this, and we pass in a value. So let's say we want to change our radius to 3 instead. And then if you print this out, get area. Alright, so now radius is 3. So when we call area, it's going to be pi times 3 times 3. So it's going to be 9 pi. And then it obviously displays the decimal value of 9 pi. And if you want to get perimeter, you would just do C2 dot get perimeter and then, close bracket. And yeah. And also, another thing I want to point out is this. Another way we can actually do this is, instead of doing public class main curly bracket, we could actually do public class circle, and we could just totally get rid of this. Okay, and obviously just put this there. All right, and this also will work. And another thing we can do instead is, so let's go back to our original thing. Instead of putting all of this in one file, so obviously this file is going to be, hold on, let me start erasing. Let me fix this. This should be, let's put this back to main. Instead of calling this, so this file will call, it has to be main.java because it has to be the same name as this. We can create another file called circle.java, and we can take all the code here and put it here. Make sure these are in the same folder, and then obviously this will be able to call this. And usually in this case, we usually have to name everything public. You technically don't have to, but it's a good habit to start doing so, because we're going to be working with other modifiers like static and private values. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, that's pretty much here. These two will be interacting with each other. This has to be the same name as the class, as the class here, and the class has to be the same name as the file, and the constructor also has to be the same name as the file as well. Okay.